Today we're going to read a book called Make Way for Ducklings. This is a book by Robert McCloskey. He wrote this book in 1941. That was almost 80 years ago. That's older than my dad. It's a fiction, but it's a little realistic. You'll notice the animals talking in here. That's how we know it's definitely fiction, but it takes place in a real place called Boston. He did all of these drawings himself with just a brown pencil. He did a lot of drawings without adding any colors. I think you'll enjoy this book. Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. It's a pretty large book. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live, but every time Mr. Mallard saw what looked like a nice place, Mrs. Mallard said it was no good. There was sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles in the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles. So they flew on and on. Where do you think they're trying to find a home? What does a duck need in its home? Let's keep reading. When they got to Boston, they felt too tired to fly any further. There was a nice pond in the public garden with a little island on it. The very place to spend the night, quacked Mr. Mallard. So down they flapped. It's a nice pond with a little island in the middle. Next morning, they fished for their breakfast in the mud at the bottom of the pond, but they didn't find much. Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. "Good morning," quacked Mr. Mallard, being polite. The big bird was too proud to answer. But the people on the boat threw peanuts into the water, so the Mallards followed them all round the pond and got another breakfast, better than the first. "I like this place," said Mrs. Mallard as they climbed out on the bank and waddled along. "Why don't we build a nest and raise our ducklings right in this pond? There are no foxes and no turtles, and the people feed us peanuts. What could be better?" "Good," said Mr. Mallard, delighted that at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that suited her. But Whurp! "Look out!" squawked Mrs. Mallard, all of a dither. "You'll get run over!" And when she got her breath, she added, "This is no place for babies, with all those horrid things rushing about. We'll have to look somewhere else." So they flew over Beacon Hill and around the State House, but there was no place there. They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim in. Then they flew over the Charles River. "This is better," quacked Mr. Mallard. That island looks like a nice quiet place, and it's only a little way from the public garden. Yes, said Mrs. Mallard, remembering the peanuts. That looks like just the right place to hatch ducklings. So they chose a cozy spot among the bushes near the water and settled down to build their nest. And only just in time, for now they were beginning to molt. All their old wing feathers started to drop out, and they would not be able to fly again until the new ones grew in. But of course, they could swim. And one day they swam over to the park on the riverbank, and there they met a police officer called Michael. Michael fed them peanuts, and after that, the Mallards called on Michael every day. Now, here I read police officer in the book because this is such an old book. It says policeman because back then there weren't any police women, any female police officers, because they thought that women couldn't do that job. Now they know better. After Mrs. Mallard had laid 8 eggs in the nest, she couldn't go to visit Michael anymore because she had to sit on the eggs to keep them warm. She moved off the nest only to get a drink of water, or to have her lunch, or to count the eggs and make sure they were all there. One day, the ducklings hatched out. Now, this is so fun. Listen to their names. First came Jack, then Cack, then Lack, then Mack, then Knack, then Oack, and Pack, and Quack. Mr. and Mrs. Ballard were bursting with pride. It was a great responsibility to take care of so many ducklings, and it kept them very busy. Just look at how cute they all are. One day, Mr. Mallard decided he'd like to take a trip to see what the rest of the river was like, farther on. So, off he set. I'll meet you in a week in the public garden, he quacked over his shoulder. Take good care of the ducklings. Don't you worry, said Mrs. Mallard. I know all about bringing up children. And she did. There she is. There he is. She taught them how to swim and dive. She taught them to walk in a line, to come when they were called, and to keep a safe distance from bikes and scooters and other things with wheels. When at last she felt perfectly satisfied with them, she said one morning, "Come along, children, follow me." Before you could wink an eyelash, Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Oack, Pack, and Quack fell into line just as they had been taught. Mrs. Mallard led the way into the water, and they swam behind her to the opposite bank. There they waded ashore and waddled along till they came to the highway. Look at what they called a highway in 1941. Look at those cars. Mrs. Mallard stepped out to cross the road. Honk, honk, went the horns on the speeding cars. Quack, went Mrs. Mallard as she tumbled back again. Quack, 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 went Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, a whack, pack, and quack, just as loud as their little quackers could quack. The cars kept speeding by and honking, and Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings kept right on quack, quack, quacking. They made such a noise that Michael came running, waving his arms and blowing his whistle. He planted himself right in the center of the road, raised one hand to stop the traffic, and then beckoned with the other, the way police officers do, for Mrs. Mallard to cross over. And I just love the expression in Mrs. Mallard's head and body there. You see her, the way she's looking at the car. As soon as Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings were safe on the other side and on their way down Mount Vernon Street, Michael rushed back to his police booth. He called Clancy at headquarters. "There's a family of ducks walking down the street," Clancy said. "Family of what?" "Ducks!" yelled Michael. "Send a police car, quick!" Meanwhile, Mrs. Mallard had reached the corner bookshop and turned into Charles Street with Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, a whack, pack, and quack all marching in line behind her. Look at the people looking out of the bookshop. And there are the baby ducklings. Everyone stared. An old lady from Beacon Hill said, "Isn't it amazing?" And the man who swept the street said, "Well, now, ain't that nice?" And when Mrs. Mallard heard them, she was so proud she tipped her nose in the air and walked along with an extra swing in her waddle. Doesn't she look proud? When they came to the corner of Beacon Street, there was the police car with 4 police officers that Clancy had sent from headquarters. The police officers held back the traffic so Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings could march across the street. And there they are, crossing the street to go to the gardens. Right on into the public garden. Inside the gate, they all turned round to say thank you to the police officers. The police officer smiled and waved goodbye. When they reached the pond and swam across to the little island, there was Mr. Mallard waiting for them, just as he had promised. The ducklings liked the new island so much that they decided to live there. All day long they follow the swan boats and eat peanuts. And when night falls, they swim to their little island and go to sleep. the end. So I know sometimes the video quality isn't great, so it's a really good idea to check this book out from the library when it opens again because the illustrations are just incredible. So I know that was a pretty long book. Our next activity is going to be drawing some baby animals. So take a break, pause the video, walk around, do what you need to do, get what you need to do some practice drawings. I'm going to be using a whiteboard and dry erase marker because it's really easy to see, but just some white paper, scrap paper, and a pencil will work just great. See you in a couple moments. So, kindergartners, I don't know about you, but I just love baby animals. They are just so cute. I have a hard time thinking about any animal where the baby isn't cute. One way that we can show that an animal is a baby has to do with some of the sizing that we use in our drawing. So check this out. If this is a head of a regular grown-up, most grown-ups have their eyes kind of right in the middle of the head. So I'm going to erase that line. One eye, two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. And then this is where the hair is. Okay? A baby, yeah, the head's a little smaller, but actually not that much smaller. Little rounder. Instead of having the eyes right in the middle, we bring the eyes even lower. One, two, still has a nose and a mouth. But do you see how that face is down lower? And then we can give it the hair. Look, that one looks younger, doesn't it? Big heads make things look cute. You'll see that in cartoons. When they want it to look cute, they'll make the head even bigger. So, if we want to draw baby animals, we're going to use that same idea of a big head. So, I know. Let's do a pig. To make a pig, you're going to start with a circle for the head. All right? Ears, eyes, kind of right in the middle. An oval for the snout with two lines right there. And then a nice round body. Legs, and a curly tail. Pig! Now, if we look at that, you see that head is pretty big. If I wanted to make a mom pig, I'd keep the head about the same size. Eyes again, ears again, snout again, but the body is going to be much bigger. Curly tail, legs, legs. Baby, adult. Same size head, body is different. Let's try a duck like in Make Way for Ducklings. Okay. Also, a duck is going to start with a circle head. Dot for an eye. Now, body is going to be an oval. I'm going to make this the baby. So the body is going to be small. Not smaller than the head, but about like that. Little triangle for the tail. And I like to erase the middle part there. And curved line for the wing. Then I'm going to make it quacking. So I do the beak open like this. Cute! Now we need the ducky's mom. Duck's mom is going to have almost the same size head, but her body is going to be quite bigger. Still do a tail and erase that line right there. Eye, wing. Maybe she's not quacking. So she's got her beak closed there. And there we have it. The way to make an animal look like a baby is to give it a big head. You can make it cuter by giving it even a bigger eye. Magic, making an animal into a baby. Tomorrow, we are going to work on a drawing of 5 little ducks. And then you are going to name those 5 little ducks, rhyming names just like from the book Make Way for Ducklings. In the meantime, I would love to see some pictures of baby animals from you. Have fun drawing!